The audited financial statements filed and other schedules on segmental billing, revenues, etc., along with the data sheet, have been uploaded on our website, infoedge.in. Firstly, talking about the standalone financials, billings in Q2 were rupees 249.5 crores, down 17% year-on-year. Revenue in Q2 was rupees 256.1 crores, down 19.1% year-on-year. Operating expenses, excluding depreciation for the quarter, were rupees 204.6 crores, down 5.9% year-on-year. Operating EBITDA stood at 51.6 crores versus 99.3 crores last year, a reduction of 48.1% year-on-year. And operating EBITDA margins for the quarter stood at 20.1% compared to 31.4% in Q2 of 1920. EBITDA readjusted for ESOP non-cash charges stood at rupees 58.1 crores versus rupees 104.8 crores in Q2 of last year. And EBITDA margin readjusted for ESOPs for the quarter stood at 22.7% versus 33.1% in Q2 of last year. Cash EBITDA for the quarter stood at rupees 45.7 crores, down 44.5% year-on-year. And deferred sales revenue stood at rupees 371.9 crores as of September 30th, 2020 versus 480.7 crores as of September 30th, 2019, a decline of 22.6% year-on-year. The cash balance in IEIL and all of its 100% subsidiaries stands at rupees 3373 crores as of September 30th, 2020. This was rupees 1,509 crores on September 30th, 2019. Key sort of highlights of the quarter. In Naukri, traffic has returned to pre-COVID levels. JobSpeak Index, which is a proxy for hiring activity in the country, is rising month on month. In September, October, it was down 23% compared to last year. This is a significant improvement over what we saw in Q1 when the index was down 60% on the average. Some sectors such as travel and hospitality are yet to recover, and that is reflecting in the index. In 99acres, also we saw traffic returning back to pre-COVID levels, although builders are still exercising caution over their advertising spends. Brokers have slowly upped their spending on resale and rental segments due to a decrease in new launch activity and buyers' preference for ready-to-move homes. And in terms of billing. And of course, we continue to invest in areas of strategic interest and adjacencies. Moving on to the consolidated financial highlights. At the consolidated level, the net sales for the company stood at rupees 260.9 crores versus rupees 329.5 crores from last year. For the consolidated entity at the PAT level, there is a gain of rupees 328 crores versus a loss of rupees 111.8 crores from the corresponding quarter of last year. Adjusted for the exceptional items, PAT stood at a loss of rupees 46 crores in quarter ended September 20th versus a loss of rupees 113.64 crores in the corresponding quarter of last year. Moving on to business-wise results, we'll first discuss recruitment. In Q2, recruitment billings were rupees 167.3 crores, down 20.2% year-on-year, while revenues were at rupees 182.6 crores, a degrowth of 19.3% year-on-year. Operating EBITDA stood at rupees 100.5 crores, down by 18.9% from September of 19. Margins were at 55% versus 54.7% in Q2 of last year. EBITDA readjusted for ESOP non-cash charges stood at 103.6 crores at 56.7% versus 55.9% in Q2 of last year. And cash EBITDA for recruitment during the quarter stood at rupees 85.4 crores, down 20% year-on-year. In Naukri in Q2, we witnessed a good recovery, a solid recovery, in fact, in collections. From a 48% decline in Q1, collections in the corporate sales part of the business were down 13% in Q2, with September collection down only 10% year-on-year. The current recovery is experienced across all industries. In Q2, the billing in IT and telecom service in September comprised our largest revenue base has reached comprising our largest revenue base, has reached pre-COVID levels. Continuous monthly improvement in direct online sales is also suggesting a revival in our sales from retail and small customers. The job seeker activity in the platform continues to recover since June, and we added, on an average, 16,528 new CVs per day in Q2, and the Naukri database grew to 71 million CVs. Average CV mods were also at about 451,000 per day in Q2. Recruiter engagement on the platform has also been recovered in Q2, though recruiter searches are still down 12% in September and 30% for Q2. The recovery is being driven primarily by the IT and ITES segment. Our traffic share in the job portal space continues to be in the 90s, with nearest competition coming from Indeed. iimjobs reported a billing of 5.17 crores for Q2 of 2021. This is a growth of 11.6%. Operated at a break-even level during the quarter. Moving on to the real estate vertical. In 99acres, billings in Q2 stood at 46.7 crores, a degrowth of 22.9% year-on-year, while revenue stood at 36.3 crores, a degrowth of 36.3% from 57 crores in Q2 of 20. Operating loss for the quarter stood at rupees 7.2 crores. EBITDA adjusted for ESOP stood at a loss of rupees 5.8 crores versus a profit of rupees 5.2 crores last year in the same quarter. And cash profit for 99acres during the quarter stood at rupees 2.9 crores against a cash profit of rupees 6.8 crores last year. In 99acres, in Q2, business improved subsequently each month from July to September, recovering to 76% of last year Q2. We exited the quarter on a much stronger momentum than where we started the quarter. While all business verticals of new home, resale, rental, and commercial continued to be impacted in Q2, new homes was impacted more, with lesser new launches than last year, and a shift in buyers' preference for more ready-to-move-in properties. The number of clients billed, the average billing per customer both impacted in Q2. On the average, smaller cities business recovered more than the larger metros. We reduced our ad spends on facilities and marketing. And by the end of Q2, daily listings posted by owners were higher than pre-COVID levels, while broker listings were recovering with some lag. Traffic on 99acres had fully recovered in Q2. By the end of Q2, traffic had started growing by 10% compared to pre-COVID Feb 20 levels. Inquiries or responses through the platform grew in a strong manner in both new homes and resale. The brand or top of the mind sort of share versus our nearest competitor slightly inched up to 59% in Q2 as per Google search trends. Moving on to Jeevansathi. In Jeevansathi, billings grew 18.6% year-on-year in Q2 to rupees 24.7 crores, and revenue grew 14.4% year-on-year to ₹9 crores for Q2 versus a loss of rupees 16.3 crores last year. Cash loss for Jeevansathi during the quarter stood at rupees 32.7 crores. In Q2, Jeevansathi saw further acceleration in profile growth rates and higher traffic on the platform. Aggressive marketing spends resulted in reaching pre-COVID levels of sales growth. Some of the features like video calling, video profiles, and video-based online meetups continue to help the business drive growth and user engagement in the quarter. Improved payment experience across platforms also helped improve realizations. We continue to consolidate our position as we penetrate deeper into our core markets. We plan to spend considerably more on marketing across all markets to strengthen our brand presence going forward. Moving on to the Shiksha business. In Q2, billings in Shiksha grew 15.2% year-on-year to rupees 10.8 crores, while revenue grew 7.7% year-on-year to rupees 13.4 crores. EBITDA for Shiksha stood at rupees 0.9 crores versus a profit of rupees 0.2 crores in Q2 of last year. EBITDA readjusted for ESOP for the quarter stood at rupees 1.4 crores versus a profit of rupees 0.6 crores last year. Cash loss for the quarter stood at rupees 1.7 crores. We are continuously putting more efforts to get more and more user-generated content on the website, so that we can drive more leads to our customers. Finally, our strategic investments. Zomato. Talking about Zomato, the company is witnessing the revival of business in food delivery. Both revenues and volumes are trending towards pre-COVID levels. The management is striving on its journey towards profitability, and the unit economics still remain encouraging. Policybazaar has registered growth in its core businesses, that is health and term insurance. The growth rate is higher than the industry growth in these two segments. Paisabazaar is also witnessing a revival in its operations, and we expect significant recovery for the business in the second half of this year. Besides this, we continue to explore investment and acquisition opportunities in areas of strategic interest and adjacencies. These investments would be continued to be made through our balance sheet or the IEIL Venture Fund. Thank you. This is all from us today, and we are now ready to take any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Hitesh. We'll now begin the Q&A session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may raise your hand on the screen. We'll take your name and announce your turn in the question queue. Anand, you may start the questions now.
The first question is from Sachin Hemnani. Sachin, go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening, sir. I have few questions, listing them together. As per your latest...
Sachin, sorry, can you introduce yourself first, please? Sachin Hemnani from where?
From Perfect Research.
From?
Perfect Research.
Perfect Research, okay. Thank you.
So I have few questions, listing them together. Number one, as per your latest presentation, Indeed seems to have lost some market share on desktop traffic share. So are we gaining the market share from the other players like Indeed, etc.? Number second, on 99acres, MagicBricks seems to have gained some market share since March 19, and our lead over them has reduced. So could you please throw some light on it? Next, with the growing number of online education players, what strategies are we taking to grow Shiksha? And the last one, also regarding our investment in Coding Ninja, now Whitehead Junior acquired by Byju's, how is the competitive intensity shaping up for Coding Ninja? That's all.
Okay. Indeed, we already have a very large share of the market. The movement in market share over the last few months, I think because of COVID, of course, we've lost, we lost traffic in the first few months, but, competition was impacted even more, and therefore we ended up gaining a couple of points in terms of market share over Indeed. But I would not read too much into it. Since we already had a very large share of the market, it doesn't really move the needle for us. Yes, but, we sort of did a better job than Indeed, at least in terms of share last quarter, or in the last 6 months. 99acres versus MBC, again, I would not read too much into these independent sort of sources which give out share, because a lot of these algorithms keep changing from quarter to quarter, right? The problem really is that if the app traffic is not so easy to measure, and so that complicates a lot of things now, because a lot of the traffic is on the app. So unlike a few years ago when a lot of the traffic was on the web, a lot of our customers now sort of use the app, and that is not so easy to measure for these a lot of these online sort of traffic sort of and data providers. We may have lost a couple of points to MagicBricks over the last few months. It may also see, but normally when these 2 or 3 points or swings which you see are often a result of advertising spend in that particular quarter. So in a quarter, if MagicBricks spends more, we may end up losing a few points. If, on the other hand, when we spend more, we may end up gaining a few points. So I will not read too much into these swings at this point in time. Your third question was around what was your third question?
It was on Shiksha strategy. Byju, Whitehead Junior, Coding Ninja.
Shiksha strategy, and then fourth one is on Coding Ninja.
Okay. So Shiksha, we continue to invest in sort of, more content and that is what's really driving traffic to our platform. So we started as a site which listed out colleges and courses, and now we have a lot of information, exams. There's a lot of other education content which we have on our platform as well. We have hundreds of thousands of reviews now on these colleges and courses on our platform. So really our strategy in Shiksha is to provide more and more relevant content to our audiences. Okay, and we believe that if you do a good job, then we get more traffic, and as a result we can then generate more inquiries for our customers who pay us for these inquiries. So Coding Ninja, grand scheme of things, their model is a little different from White Hat Junior. They sort of originally, when we invested in them, they were basically trying to teach their main business, while Coding Ninja, White Hat and others are sort of targeted, they basically try and teach students and kids in school. So Coding Ninja, the proposition is that they want to help sort of job seekers and then help them get better jobs, right, over time, because of the upskilling which they sort of provide to them. So, and there is very, very early for them, and this is the model they are sort of working on right now. So they're very different from White Hat and Byju's and the others.
Okay, all right.
The next question is from Vivekanand Subramanian from Ambit Capital. Vivek, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, thank you very much for the opportunity. I have two questions. One is, we are seeing that the usage metrics, whether it's job seeker activity or say recruiter searches, they are gradually coming back on track as far as Naukri is concerned, and same is the case with 99acres. So Hitesh, just wanted your views on how long will it take for our monetization to follow, given that we are still quite some distance away from the peak billing that we saw both in recruitment and realty, right? We are down 36% versus 4Q FY19 in recruitment, 30% down versus 99acres. Second question is on the monetization of the new traffic that you are getting on 99acres. You said that we now have owner listings at an all-time high, and brokers are also spending more time on the portal. So how do we build out these new revenue streams? Because if I understand correctly, new launches used to be the dominant portion of our revenue in 99acres. Thank you.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. See, activity is coming back. We saw job seeker activity come back about 3 months back, and now coming back, searches are increasing, CCTV views, and I think if this trend continues, it's only a matter of time before we start, before revenue catches up. See, we our billings in Q2 were about 80% of last year, but in September we did 90% of what we did in September of last year, right? So on the COVID front, then it's normal levels. We should not compare with Q4 because Q4 is seasonally a very strong quarter for us, right? And a lot of businesses are due for subscriptions are due for renewal in Q4. Of course, what COVID has also done is it's sort of resulted in a shift. A lot of businesses who did not renew in Q4 of last year or Q1 of this year may actually end up buying in Q3 and Q4 of this year. So let's see how that plays out. So some of the business we are getting actually is business from customers who did not renew when they were due for renewal in the last few quarters. So that's and the same thing is happening in 99acres. Again, a lot of there, of course, the renewal part of the business is smaller in size compared to Naukri. Because we sell a lot of monthly and quarterly campaigns as well. But even there, a lot of our clients did not renew in in Q1, especially brokers who are annual customers, and now some of them are coming back. Traffic is also back in 99 acres. In fact, the response on the site is actually at an all-time high. The number of inquiries we're generating are like 50-60% on the buy side over last year. So let's see how that plays out. But and to answer your second question, see there again, you're absolutely right. See, what we are seeing is a shift in interest from buyers. So instead of new homes, many of them are looking for deals in the ready-to-move-in market, right? And therefore, interest or inquiries have shifted to that segment, which has resulted in our new launch revenue coming under pressure. So new homes which are almost ready to move in are still sort of in demand, but new launches or homes will be ready 3 years from now, 4 years from now, that sort of response has gone down, and that's impacting revenue. But my sense is that even on that front, things are now beginning to improve. We are now seeing even new home inquiries go up a little bit, and it's only a matter of time before that revenue also, and if the situation continues to get better on the COVID front, I think it's only a matter of time before that revenue also comes back on track.
Right. Just one small follow-up on the Naukri answer. So historically, we've grown via a mix of new customer acquisition and also greater usage by our existing customers. So when I look at the unique customers that we reported, we are still down around 20% as far as the unique customers are concerned. So by when do you expect that we get back to the unique customer level that we had pre-COVID and potentially then acquire new clients also?
So that will take a few more quarters in my view to play out, because a lot of customers have gone out of business. A lot of companies have shut down shop. A lot of companies have scaled down operations, and many of them did not buy or renew in the last 2 or 3 quarters. We are slowly getting some of them back, right?
Okay, thank you. All the best.
Yeah, the next question is from Ashish Agrawal from Principal AMC. Ashish, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, thanks. Sir, just wanted to understand the increase in the advertising cost. Was this primarily driven by Jeevan Sathi and the 99 acres business? And just wanted to understand on the Naukri side, you indicated a lot of that growth is being driven by ITES business. Wanted to understand, apart from ITES, have you seen a growth in other segments also? I think you highlighted travel segment remains stressed, but apart from travel, have you started to see growth in other segments also? Yeah, thanks.
So travel, some of these kinds of like apparel and retailing, and these segments are very, very stressed still. We've not gotten back to pre-COVID levels, or in fact we are down maybe 40, 50, 60% from where we were a year ago in terms of activity on our platform from recruiters. In IT, we are getting close to base. So IT companies, activity from IT companies is now almost at the same level as it was, pre-COVID. Some other sectors that are doing well are sectors like healthcare and education, and telecom and insurance. So these sectors are still okay, but they're still down, vis-a-vis where they were pre-COVID. So that's the sort of lay of the land on the recruitment side. Now, of course, things are getting better with every passing week, and we don't know, and if the situation on the COVID front continues to improve, hopefully more and more sort of sectors will come back to normal levels. Anecdotally, what we're also hearing from companies is that attrition rates are going up everywhere. Right, so that's something we are seeing, or companies are telling us. So let's see how this plays out. Sorry, what is your first question?
This was on the advertising cost. It has looked like it's just want to understand, was it?
That's mostly on account of Jeevan Sathi.
So the Jeevan Sathi investment you said will contribute.
Last quarter.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Yeah, the next question is from Vijit Jain from Citi. Vijit, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. I have two questions. One is on the Naukri business. Now, if we look at the commentary from the major IT companies in India, a lot of them have announced wage hikes for employees, and looks like recruitment is going to be strong in the next year or so in that segment. So I know you mentioned that ITES is almost close to base, but do you think it will meaningfully exceed pre-COVID levels in the near future in the next 1-2 quarters? What kind of momentum are you seeing there? Is my first question. And my second question is
not as if they are hiring much more than what they were hiring earlier, at least from our platform. Very difficult for me to say what is going to happen in the next few months. I guess to some extent, it may depend on what happens in the US and how that sort of scene plays out. As far as revenue comes from rental, and even smaller portion of our revenue comes from commercial. What New Broker is doing, I guess, is they're a different model. They're not just a classified; they're actually an end-to-end sort of transaction platform in some sense. They provide all kinds of services to their users. They don't allow other brokers to list on their platform, for example. So they're in some ways. Right? They may call themselves no broker, but they provide all the services a broker provides. And of course, they're also trying to get into other areas like society management and so on and so forth. So our focus in the near term is going to continue to be on improving the search and classified experience for our users on our platform in 99acres. Of course, we may sort of provide a lot more information to them over time to help them, take a decision, to help them sort of understand the real estate market better, to help them understand what's the lay of the land, and so on and so forth. So we will provide a lot more research information in the near term. We already provide some owner assist services to owners. So if owners want to list their properties on 99acres, we help them sell their properties. We help them rent their properties through 99acres. We have a team which but we don't do the transaction. We just sort of help them a little bit, which is why they call assisted services, not transaction services. Do we have any plans to provide more services in the near term? Not in the near term, but definitely not ruled out in the medium term.
all right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So these were the questions as of now. In case there are more questions, please raise your hand so that we can take them one by one. So Vivekanand Subramaniam from Ambit Capital has again raised. Vivek, you want to discuss again?
Yes, thank you very much for the follow-up. So, pressing a bit on the recruitment piece, you mentioned about certain sectors that are doing well. Also, could you talk a little bit about the growth that we are seeing, especially in the JobSpeak index in small towns? I mean, the tier 2 cities seem to be holding up much better than big cities like Mumbai, Delhi. So is there any plan to increase the sales infrastructure or distribution infrastructure in these towns so that we can capitalize on the opportunity in these small towns? And the same question is applicable for realty also. Hitesh, you mentioned this in the opening remarks that smaller towns seem to be doing much better than the large cities. So I guess it's a common question on whether you want to invest in creating additional infrastructure on the ground in small cities.
Yeah, so smaller towns have actually, on the whole, performed a lot better than large cities during COVID. Maybe because there have been sort of fewer cases of COVID in these small towns compared to cities like Bombay, Pune, Delhi, Bangalore, which were locked down for a very long period of time. And in 99 acres also, we've seen a surge in even buyer activity in small towns, not just listings. Unfortunately, for us, today at least, and they're a very small part of our total revenue, both in 99 acres and in Naukri. And we've been in many of these small towns for a very long time now. So Naukri has offices and sales offices in over 40 cities. 99 acres has offices in over 40 cities. So it's not as if we don't cover these small towns. We've been there for a long time. They're growing, but they're growing off a very low base, right? So even if they continue to grow like this for a year or two, they will not really move the needle for us in any significant way in both Naukri and 99 acres. And of course, we will continue. So we don't mind going to 100 cities, 200 cities. We go wherever there is business. So that's not a problem. But it's just that there's not enough business in these small towns still. They're growing, but off a very low base.
Right, and I can understand that it would be the case in recruitment, because I guess the white collar recruitment activity and of course business activity would be much higher in the top cities. But why is that the case in real estate? Is it so that the sales velocity is much lower in small towns, and is it because also a lot of construction happens by people on their own rather than sale of property by builders?
No, so you're absolutely right in saying that the real estate market is a broader market. The real estate is bought and sold in maybe 200 cities, 300 cities, 500 cities. It's bought and sold everywhere. Unlike white collar job activity, which is actually restricted to maybe 20, 30, 40 cities in this country. So we are cognizant of that, and we do believe that in the long run, 99 acres will be in 100, 200, 300 cities. It's just that, today, the number of transactions which take place in small towns is still very low, on a monthly basis. Real estate market has actually shrunk over the last few years. And even in places like Bombay and Delhi, we've seen a massive drop in real estate transactions. Values are also lower. Housing values are also lower in small towns. So while you can, in Bombay, an average house is maybe a crore or two. In a small town, you can get a house for 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs very easily. So therefore, it's just that the size of the market is much, much smaller. That's all. So maybe this will change over the next few years. But right now, the number of brokers in small towns, the number of transactions, the number of houses bought and sold, is just tiny compared to some of the bigger cities. Together, they add up to a significant number. Maybe, if you add all the traffic we get for all the small towns in the country, maybe it's still 25, 30, 40% of all 99 acres traffic. But from a revenue standpoint, they're still very, very tiny.
Right. Thank you. And last question is on Jeevan Sathi. So what is going right for you here? And if you could help us understand whether the growth is driven by volume, or is it that your brand has now become strong, helping you take increases in tariffs or reduce the discounts? And secondly, in terms of the overall market, what would our share be of the total transactions that happen volume wise and value wise? Do you have any sense on that?
See, we've gained some share in this market over the last 3-4 years because we've been investing very aggressively in marketing and branding. We've been growing at 15-20% per annum. In fact, for the last 4 years now. While on the other hand, the industry has been growing at maybe 7-10% per annum for the last few years. So we've gained share, and most of our share gains have been in the Hindi belt, in the northern and western parts of the country, which is where we are, focused. So we are a strong number 2 player now in the north and west. More in volume growth than value growth. We want more and more activity on our platform. We want more handshakes to happen on our platform. That's been our sort of focus, and therefore, on the one hand, we've upped marketing expenditure. On the other hand, we've dropped pricing, and that's been the case for the last few years now. In terms of share, nationally, our share is still very small. We are still maybe, the market is about, we are maybe about 15% of the market. But that's because we don't really have any presence in the south, which is a very large part of the overall market. In the west, in the Hindi belt, we probably have a 35% share of the market. In the north and west together, we may probably have a 25, 27, 28% share of the market. So yeah, and so that's what we continue to do. We continue to sort of penetrate deeper and deeper into the heartland and trying to gain share.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks, Vivek. Next question is from Suraj Garg from KPMG. Suraj, please go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, I just had one quick question. Could you give us a sense of how much of your marketing spend is being spent on Jeevansathi alone?
So last quarter, our marketing spend on Jeevansathi was about 43 crores, I think.
Got it. And could you give us a sense of how much of what is the paid profile growth and free profiles growth in Jeevansathi?
To refer to our data sheet, whatever information we reveal is in our data sheet. We don't reveal everything, so I can't give you all the numbers, but whatever we reveal is in our data sheet, which is on infoedge.in. Just take a look at that.
Got it. Thank you.
Next question is from Anmol Garg from Motilal Oswal. Anmol, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, hi Hitesh. So just wanted to get some sense that are we planning to increase our advertisement expense into Jeevansathi, and also are we planning to increase any kind of planning to do any kind of advertising in 99acres as well?
So Jeevansathi ad spend, we've already substantially over the, compared to Q1, we spent a lot more in Q2. We continue to be aggressive in Q3 as well. I can't give you Jeevansathi in the foreseeable future. The market has also become a lot more competitive. Our competition is also spending a lot more than they were spending earlier. So we really have no choice. And so that's Jeevansathi. 99acres, wait and watch. We have upped our ad spend slightly over last quarter in Q3. But we are waiting to see how the market evolves. If the market, if competitive activity increases in the real estate business, then of course we'll be forced to up our ad spend as well.
Okay, sir. Secondly, Hitesh, just wanted to get some outlook on some of the new initiatives within the recruitment portal that you have started off, like Big Shift, and is there any potential in the blue collar job market?
See, these are just startups. The company we're experimenting and with them in a few areas. Big Shift still very, very tiny. We have a few customers now, and we are getting some sort of revenue, but still very, very early days. Blue collar, we are test marketing in Delhi right now in the NCR region. We are making good progress. We've got some traction. We've got leveraging. We will get better in NCR. So these are sort of long shift or the blue collar job board to contribute to revenue in the near term.
Okay, sure. And just lastly, just for bookkeeping, can you repeat the EBITDA of Shiksha? I missed that. Thanks.
Shiksha EBITDA. Vivek, do you have it with you? Can you just dig it out?
Yeah, it was 90. Yeah, it was 90 lakhs for the quarter.
Okay, thanks.
Next question is from Alankar Garude from Macquarie. Please go ahead and ask your question, Alankar.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. My first question is, can you comment about the M&A activity in each of our 4 key verticals? So, for example, there was a deal couple of weeks back for one of our real estate peers. So, are there any acquisition opportunities which are likely to come about for us over the next few quarters in any of these 4 verticals?
So we are constantly evaluating companies. In the last quarter alone, we must have looked at about 5 or 6 sort of deals which have come out. We've said no to most of them. I can't comment on the deals, but we have a team in-house and we are continuously looking for opportunities to both invest in startups and also acquire companies in all the verticals we operate in. So, I mean, so far we haven't found a suitable candidate for acquisition. But yes, are we talking to lots of companies? Are we evaluating lots of companies? Yes, we are. Okay. And Hitesh, so when you say 5-6 deals, so that would be across these 4 verticals only, the key verticals, or any of our the startups as well, includes the startups as well? No, those startups, that's a separate activity. That's through the InfoEdge sort of venture fund and through the that's separate. They probably look at hundreds of companies every quarter. I'm referring to the spaces we are already in. Fair enough. Where we have. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Next question is from Aditya Badami from Kari Capital. Aditya, go ahead and ask your question.
No, I was referring to the spaces where we have.
Hello.
Yeah, Aditya, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, sorry, I think I was unmuted. Yeah, good evening. I just wanted to mention talk about Zomato. So Sanjeev last quarter mentioned that that half the restaurants may not survive through this year because of COVID. And today you mentioned that Zomato's unit economics are improving. So I just want to know, is it being driven by better revenue or has their cost rationalization improved?
No. I don't think I could have said half the restaurants will not survive. I probably said it is possible that half of the restaurants that are still shut may not survive.
Yeah, sorry. Stand corrected. Yeah.
So, look, some restaurants are closed down, right? Exact number I do not know. The delivery part of the business is growing well. It's not yet come back to pre-COVID levels, but it should come back to pre-COVID levels pretty soon. And this you're talking about revenue for Zomato and not GMV and not volume, right? Zomato unit economics have changed since COVID. They are charging a delivery charge. They're giving lower discounts. Therefore, their revenue per order has gone up.
Okay.
And the average order value has also gone up as a consequence, right? So therefore, on revenue, they're back to almost back to pre-COVID levels. In a couple of months, they should exceed it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that does. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Next question is from Utkarsh Solarpurwala from Damas Capital. Utkarsh, go ahead and ask your question.
First one is on Ustraa. Marico recently acquired Beardo in July 2020, and
I can't hear your question, please. Can you come close to the mic?
Marico recently acquired Beardo, and Beard is the competitor for Ustra. And when I compare the financials, Beardo is doing much better as compared to Ustra. So will Ustra be able to compete with Beardo once Marico integrates the business in it business and start to grow the Beardo business?
Well, look, obviously, Marico is a large company and they have muscle and their distribution and all that, and therefore it's a significant competitor. But Ustra also sells direct to consumers, right? Ustra has raised money from IIFL. We've announced that, right? Beardo sells to salon chains a large part of their output. Now, of course, Marico could extend it to consumers. So it's a slightly different strategy, and it's not a winner-take-all market. So as long as Ustra achieves its goals and numbers, we think it's all right.
And second question is on Shop Kirana. So new companies are trying out different logistic methods to reach out customers during the lockdown. So how has been the performance of Shop Kirana in last 6 months?
So Shop Kirana exceeded pre-COVID levels within 2-3 months of the lockdown because it's an essential item. I think it was initially a physical disruption because their delivery vans would not go out, but that lasted about 15-20 days. After that, they were able to manage. So it's doing rather well in the cities that it's operating. And they've also launched their own house brands in a couple of categories, which are also getting some traction. So look, Shop Kirana is doing well, but it's still doing experiments. With its own house brands, with a few tweaks to business models here and there. So let's see what happens.
Thank you, sir.
Vijit, you want to discuss again? Vijit Jain from Citi.
Yeah, hi. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. So I had two questions. One on Zomato. I think you answered it partly, but I was just curious. When you say unit economics are improving, do you believe that they would be able to achieve similar GMV levels as pre-COVID in the next year with these kinds of unit economics that they have? Or is there
pre-COVID revenue levels? I said on the food delivery part, which is a bigger part, and which is a substantial part, should be back, in a month or two. Is the expectation.
Thank you. And my second question was, among the other investments you guys have, just wanted to know your thoughts on categories like, you have a few in B2B e-commerce, you have a few software.
And you said B2B e-commerce, what do you mean? Which investment?
Shoe Connect would be B2B kind
Correct.
of e-commerce.
So again, Shoe Connect is doing rather well. It has got investment from 2 other marquee investors. We've participated along with the other early investor. So I think that company is showing great traction, great growth, and has now got access to great capital. It's back to pre-COVID levels.
How about Gramophone? So my question actually was, as a category, you have 3 or 4 of these, right? You have Gramophone, Shoe Connect, and you also have...
So Gramophone is not B2B. I mean, Gramophone is B2C, unless you think of farm as a business, which is quite possible to say, actually.
So
but go ahead, yeah.
So my question was, among these broader categories, right? If I just simplify that further to, e-commerce, B2B or B2C, wherever you are present, and some of these software and service businesses that you're present in, just wondering what your thoughts are on how these things have shaped up post-COVID, how the landscape for these businesses have changed post-COVID.
So look, we don't bother so much about the landscape and the environment as we bother about the performance of our companies, each specific company. And I'm quite pleased to say that almost all of our companies have coped quite well with the COVID crisis. whether it's Shipsy, whether it's Gramophone, whether it's Business or Shoe Connect, whether it is Shop Kirana, whether it's No Paper Forms, they have all coped very well with COVID, which was actually something we were quite worried about in the first month or two. I think the management teams are really good. I think we invested behind some. We're fortunate to have invested behind some really good entrepreneurs.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was my main question.
And one or two of them have got COVID also and have recovered.
Okay.
So it's not just the company. Even they have coped with COVID.
Thank you so much.
Anmol Garg from Motilal Oswal, you want to discuss again? You had discussed earlier also.
No, I think all my questions are answered.
Okay, thank you so much. The next question is from Sudhir Guntapalli. Sudhir, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. Hitesh, as you alluded to in one of your earlier comments, attrition rates across the industries seem to be inching up gradually. And multiple industries have also been talking about bottlenecks in terms of availability of the talent or manpower. So in the equation, demand actually seems to be there, but still there is a huge gap in our monetizability on a year-on-year basis or even compared to pre-COVID levels. So do you think maybe relooking at our pricing or marketing strategy in the Naukri segment, at least for a limited period of time, may help us in bridging the gap in monetizability?
See, our product team is continuously sort of looking at ways and means to sort of get more traffic, improve our monetization on the platform. What we don't want to do is, what we don't want to sort of, so see, this is a difficult time for our customers. We want to be as supportive as possible. What we are trying to, of course, do is create more value for them. And if we create more value, I'm sure they'll be happy to pay us more. That's what our focus will be going forward.
Sure. And secondly, on Jeevansathi, looks like we had run multiple flash sales during the quarter, offering up to 70-80% discounts on the subscription packages. So just trying to understand the rationale here. Matrimony looks like a segment which anyways is witnessing some shift from physical to digital in the current COVID context. So just curious on how you see the sustainability of this, let's say, aggressive pricing or marketing strategy, especially given the fact the churn of the customers in the segment is relatively higher.
So this is something we've been doing for the last 2-3 years, and it's not just us now. Everybody else is also doing the same thing, whether it's Shaadi or Matrimony. We sort of course, started doing it because, we wanted more and more paid customers on our platform. We wanted them to spend. We were a number 3 player in the market, right? So in some ways, we were a challenger. And this was our strategy to get more and more people to use us and to become paid customers. And because many of these customers would have otherwise gone in paid competition because we were a weak player at that time. And this worked for us. We were able to grow our volumes by over 200-300% over the last 2 or 3 years, and that's got the platform to a certain level. Is it sustainable in the long run? Clearly, a 3-player market where players are competing aggressively with each other on customer acquisition and also trying to outdo each other on pricing is not sustainable for a very long time. But that's what it is right now.
Sure, Hitesh. That's helpful. Thanks and all the best.
Utkarsh from Diamonds Capital, you want to discuss again, Utkarsh?
No, all my questions will be answered.
Okay, your hand was raised actually. Okay, thank you. Next question is from Jaipal Reddy. Jaipal, go ahead and ask your question. He's an individual investor.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So I have 2 questions actually. The first question is about, from our investee companies, right now we see Zomato and Policybazaar are a very big fish. And what is our next, the good call that we have taken, which is emerging that we can count on the next few years, a few quarters?
Sorry, could you repeat that question? Your voice is a little soft.
Yeah. So right now from our investee companies, we see Zomato and Policybazaar, are made out to be very good calls. And what is the next one we can count on to be, our big?
So look, the others are much earlier, much smaller.
Okay.
But many of them have received external validation by external investment from marquee investors.
Okay.
So Ustra has got investment from Wipro Consumer. It's got investment from IIFL. Likewise, business with the Shoe Connect has got investment from two marquee investors, apart from another external investor. Gramophone, has got enough inbound interest. Nothing announced yet. Shipsy has got enough, nothing announced yet, but enough inbound interest. So a lot of them have got validation or getting validation in the process of, and it'll be announced by and by as these companies raise money. But yes, for anybody to become as valuable as Policybazaar or Zomato will take some time.
Great.
So there are 5 or 6 which we are hopeful of.
Okay.
Now, we hope all of them make it to that level. We know that we'll be very fortunate if all of them make it. But even if 2-3 of them make it to that level, I think we are doing very well.
Great. Yeah. Good to hear. I have one.
But it will take time.
Great. I understood. Yeah. So my next question is about, there is a lot of uncertainty, right now in the market, right? In terms of, a lot of people got, a lot of small business players were suffering from a lot of losses and all. So what is our CSR activity, that we are doing from last 6 months? Do we change any change in our CSR activity, without, at the end of the day, we also need to be safe, right? Did we do any investments and contribution to our society?
Yes, we have. And, I'll leave it to Chintan to talk about it. Chintan, are you in a position to talk about it? Or Murali, are you? About what? But we have reoriented at least a significant chunk of our CSR budget. We have had employee contributions toward this, and we're managing those projects. We are funding, several projects related to CSR. Now, this is the corporate level. At a personal level, also the founders, the management is also doing philanthropy, to support people in times of COVID. And Zomato has done a lot. Zomato has, launched a Feeding India program where they're feeding, where they fed a large number of people during lockdown. Can they talk about what we've done?
Yeah, no, I think that's correct. I'll just add, one point that yes, we are continuing, to support the organizations which we were, in the past were supporting, because there is a kind of a soft expectations. Those organizations also kind of dependent in some ways on our contribution. So we have continued that. We have not diverted that, but we have generated additional funds, from the company, from the employees, and we have also focused, very specific initiatives around COVID and helping them out. So we are, far more holistic in our approach. We are adding, our contribution to COVID, and medical sides, but we are continuing to support the existing contributions as well.
Next question is from.
Great to hear that.
Yeah. Thanks, Jayapal. Next question is from Pooja Ahuja, Untis Wealth. Pooja, go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, sir. I just have one question with Zomato's IPO, coming up maybe next year. Do we intend to pair some of our stake, or will we hold on to our stake in the company?
Look, we are not in any hurry to sort of sell anything. We have the ability to stay on for a long, long time because we are not running a fund where we have to return somebody else's money. At a finite period of time, we see substantial value creation going forward. Having said that, look, you never say never, but there is no pressure on us to sell. Let me just elaborate on that. You see, the challenge in India is that early stage investments take a long time to create value. So you've got to be patient, because strategic sales are not happening in a hurry at valuation that will give VC investors any joy. If you leave out Flipkart, right? That is a black swan, right? Now, IPOs take a long time to happen, right? So if Zomato and Policybazaar IPO in the next 2 years or 3 years, or next year even, you've taken 11 and 13 years to have gone from inception to IPO, or first round to IPO, right? Most VC funds are 8-year funds with 2 years extension. So really to get exits, you have to be very patient. We have been in Zomato for 10 years. We have been in Policybazaar for 12 years. And a lot of the value creation has happened in the appreciation has happened in the last 2 years. So had we been a regular VC fund, we would have exited and not benefited from value creation. So we have to really make money in India, you have to be very, very patient and stay for a long, long time. And that's fine.
Got it. That's it for now.
Next question is from Swapnil from JM Financial. Swapnil, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, sir. So my question is regarding the employee costs. So just like some, we have started hiring again, and have the appraisals which were postponed been taken, and a comment on incentives as well. That would help.
Yeah, so started replacing people in a lot of businesses. In some parts of the company, like the newer businesses, we are in like Job Hai and Big Shift, we are hiring a few people as well. We had put salary increases on hold for the first 6 months. We are revisiting that right now as we speak. We had put bonuses on hold. We are likely to sort of dole out bonuses in this quarter to our employees for last year. Starts returning to normal, we'll do sort of more of these things.
And are the incentives back, or because I think incentives are different than the bonuses, right?
Yeah, so incentives, our sales team is on incentives, and we have a monthly incentive plan and a quarterly plan. So they were never withdrawn. So it's just that the payout sort of reduced because the sales guys were not able to meet their targets in the first quarter and in the last quarter of last year. But Q2 we had a reasonable quarter, so many sales guys made their incentives. So incentive payout also increased substantially in Q2, and I'm hoping that people meet their targets and therefore earn their incentives going forward as well.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Next question is from Dhiresh. Dhiresh, go ahead and ask your question.
Am I audible?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so for September, Naukri, you said collection billing was down 10%. For October, what is it?
So normally we don't give out the quarter numbers before. I mean, so let me put it this way, that the things are sort of going in this quarter also right now.
Sorry, Hitesh, you're not audible. So
Hitesh, we can't hear you.
Number one. Sorry, October is a very small month for.
Because you want to switch off
you guys clearly. Can you hear me now?
We want to switch off your video.
Okay, can you hear me now? Because I can hear you
much better.
I can see you clearly. Yeah. Sorry. So see, October is the first month of the quarter. The first month of the quarter is not a very large month for us. A lot of our renewals are due at quarter end, and that's when we end up collecting a lot of money. Also, last year Diwali was in October. This year Diwali is in November. So the numbers are not strictly comparable, but we are happy with what we saw in October.
Is it better than September? Because it'll be like to like, right? October versus last year October, right?
Yeah, but like I said, it's not strictly comparable because Diwali was in October last year. This November, right? So hard to draw sort of inferences from it.
And for real estate, you did not give September collection exit rate.
We did not, but I'm sure it was higher than the quarter average for sure. Even October was a reasonably good month for real estate. But again, it's not strictly comparable because Diwali was in October last year. This year it's in November.
And this new home construction activity, which you said, because of the customer preference is down right now, how much does that contribute in a pre-COVID environment? How much was it contributing to revenue?
So see, new homes are a very large part of our business, but within new homes, there is a category called new launches, right? New launches are basically projects which are launched. They are sort of, I mean, construction is like about to start, right? And therefore, the project will become available to live in maybe or the property will become available to live in 3 or 4 years later. So a significant proportion of new home revenue comes from new launches, and new launches have actually been impacted the most over the last few months.
Yeah, but that is like what was it, like 30% of total 99acres revenue, 40%? How much was it? Just a range will also help.
New home revenue is significant. New home as a whole is significant, about I think 60% of our total revenue, if not more, 60-65%. Of that, new launches, I don't have the exact number right now, but would be maybe a 30-40%.
Okay. And what is the total cash now on
the balance sheet?
Yeah.
Okay, just Vivek, you have the number with you? It's 3,300 something crores in that range.
Yeah, 3,323 crores. Yeah.
And at the time of the QIP, it was sounding as if, some M&A transaction is very nearby. So has that phase gone for whatever reason it is? Has it gone away and now nothing is immediately, on the table? Is it like that?
No, so like I said earlier, see, we keep talking to companies, and we've been talking to some companies for a very long time. Some companies have recently come on the table. Sometimes, we don't like what they see. Sometimes they don't like what we offer. So so we keep talking, and we've been talking to companies in the matrimonial space. We've been talking to companies in the real estate space. We've been talking to companies in the education space, job space, in all the sectors we are in, and even related sectors. But nothing has materialized till now. I mean, for a deal to happen, two parties have to agree, and that's not happened till now, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Diwali wishes to the team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question is from Atman Ajmera. Atman, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, good evening, gents. Can you hear me?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So a bit of a big picture question from my side and slightly linked to the previous question. So given your size and the liquidity in a balance sheet, you're often seen as the one to be consolidating, as a consolidator of the industry, be it real estate or matrimony. My question is, do you see a scenario where perhaps Magicbricks and housing sort of merge together? And A, do you think that is a likely event? And B, what is the consequence for 99acres if that were to happen? Can you sort of combat a merged housing and Magicbricks?
Yeah, see, everything is possible. I mean, housing is a number 3 player in the market. They could merge with a Magicbricks, though I think what has happened in there is that REA has upped their stake significantly, and they now are majority owners of housing. So can we compete with the Magicbricks plus housing sort of combination? Of course we can. I mean, see, there was in the past also, see, we've had Common Floor, we've had India Property, we've had a bunch of other players in the market. Our sense is that, unless and until the merged company sort of brings a strong sort of, value in some form to the table, either, they are, if they are strong in some market and you are strong in some other market, and therefore the combination is stronger, then it's a different ball game. Or if they have something which you don't have, some technology, some product, some customer base, so mergers create value. But if it's just a number 1 company or a number 2 company acquiring number 3 company, often, at least we believe that those mergers don't create a lot of value.
But the thing is, the previous examples you mentioned, they were fragments, right? I mean, they were sub 10% traffic share. The now number 2 and 3 they sort of have in the 20s, right? So even they might not have sort of synergies of sorts. It's just the mere traffic. Is that a big deterrent sort of for you?
I think we don't think so, because we believe it makes much more sense to invest in sort of, unless they are complementary, like I said, in different brands, and they sort of operate in different segments or different markets. In my view, it makes a lot more sense to strengthen one brand and strengthen the user experience of that brand than have a multi-brand strategy.
Got it. That's all from me, actually. Thank you.
So Pooja had raised hand again. Pooja, you want to discuss again? Are you there, Pooja? Maybe just an error. Okay, the next question is from Sagar Goel. Sagar, go ahead and ask your question.
So, hi, hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. Could you just explain on Zomato and Policy Bazaar IPO timelines? And second question is, could you explain on the InfoEdge venture side, what is the fund strategy and what sort of deals are you looking and what sectors? Thanks.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sanjay.
No. What is the first question?
The IPO timeline.
Yeah. Why don't you handle the IPO question, Chintan?
Yeah. So look, I know that there are news reports around Policy Bazaar as well as Zomato intending to do IPO. And yes, that's true in a sense that companies have been preparing themselves, right? To do an IPO, there is it's a kind of long journey, and you need to really prepare yourself. So from the point where you are just a startup to the point where you kind of make your company ready for IPO, it's quite a long journey. And both the companies are preparing themselves for that journey. They are making their companies ready for it. So there is definitely an intention behind it. When will it happen? I think that's a question that this is a little premature to respond to that. We'll see. Right now, the focus is on make the company ready for an IPO, so that if we finally decide and if we finally say that yes, everything is right for us to do IPO, we will go ahead with that. So right now, it's just about preparing the company for IPO.
So the strategy for the InfoEdge Ventures, it's the same as earlier. We are focusing on the same areas. We are going in the same stage of companies. Nothing changes. It's just that we have housed it in an AIF.
Okay, thank you.
So that was the last question we had. In case of any more question, we may wait for some time.
Okay.
So there are no more questions. Please go ahead.
Thank you.
So on behalf of InfoEdge India Limited, we conclude this conference. Thank you and wishing you and your family a very happy Diwali. And you may now disconnect the call. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Happy Diwali.
Thank you. Happy Diwali.
Thank you.
Thank you.